The first time I saw the movie, it hadn't happened yet. I know that sounds impossible, but I remember every detail of that night. The smell of stale popcorn, the flickering exit sign above the theater door, and the low hum of the ancient projector behind me. The screen showed a news report about a terrible accident on Interstate 80 outside a small Pennsylvania town. A tanker truck had overturned during a thunderstorm, causing several cars to crash. The reporter stood beside twisted metal and shattered glass, describing the accident as if it had already happened. I watched without moving until the screen went black. Then white letters appeared. Tomorrow, 8:17 a.m. I thought it was some kind of experimental horror film. I didn't realize the accident would happen the next morning. The theater was called the Marlowe Cinema, although everyone in town called it the Old Marlowe. It had been closed for nearly 20 years before reopening under new ownership. The building sat at the end of an almost abandoned street, surrounded by boarded-up shops and overgrown weeds. Inside, everything looked frozen in another decade. The red velvet seats were faded, the brass railings were covered in dust, and the carpet smelled damp. I had taken a part-time job there because the owner, Mr. Harlan, needed someone to work late shifts. My responsibilities were simple: sell tickets, clean the lobby, check the theaters, and lock the building at midnight. For the first few nights, everything was normal. Then, on a Tuesday evening, I discovered a hallway that wasn't supposed to exist. While carrying cleaning supplies through the back hallway, I noticed a narrow corridor I had never seen before. At the end was a door marked 6. The Marlowe supposedly had only 5 screens. I opened it and found a small theater with about 50 seats. The projector was already running. At first, the screen showed an ordinary movie, but suddenly the image changed. A news anchor appeared and began reporting about an accident on Interstate 80. I recognized the highway immediately. She described a tanker truck overturning during a storm at exactly 8:17 the following morning. The report showed emergency vehicles, wrecked cars, and police officers standing in heavy rain. Everything looked disturbingly real. Then the screen displayed the time 8:17 a.m. and went black. I walked into the hallway and found Mr. Harlan waiting there. His face had gone completely pale. He didn't ask what I had seen. He simply stared at the door and whispered, "You found 6." I asked what that meant, but he refused to explain. The next morning, I woke up to breaking news. A tanker truck had overturned on Interstate 80 during a thunderstorm at exactly 8:17 a.m. Several vehicles had crashed, and the details were almost identical to what I had watched the night before. I drove straight to the theater and confronted Mr. Harlan. He finally told me that Theater 6 had existed long before he bought the building. According to the previous owner, the projector had been installed in the 1950s and sometimes showed events that had not happened yet. Mr. Harlan said the old owner had discovered the strange ability decades ago. Every few years, someone would accidentally activate the projector and it would show a future event. Sometimes the events were harmless. Other times they were tragedies. The previous owner eventually sealed Theater 6 and told everyone it didn't exist. I wanted to quit immediately, but curiosity kept me there. That night, I returned to the theater. The projector started by itself at midnight. This time, the screen showed a little girl standing alone outside a school. A timestamp appeared in the corner, 2 days from now. I recognized the school because it was only 10 minutes from my apartment. The next morning, I called the police anonymously and warned them that a child might be in danger near the school. They dismissed me. 2 days later, a missing child report appeared on the news. The girl from the screen was the same girl. Thankfully, she was eventually found alive. But I couldn't stop thinking about how I had seen her disappearance before anyone knew she was missing. After that, I became obsessed with Theater 6. Every night I checked the projector. Sometimes it showed meaningless events, like a dog running across a street or a man dropping his briefcase on a train platform. Other times, it showed fires, accidents, and disappearances. I started writing down every date, location, name, and time I saw. I convinced myself that if I could predict enough disasters, I could prevent them. Then, one Thursday night, the projector showed something different. It showed the Marlowe cinema itself. The lobby was filled with police officers, glass covered the floor, red emergency lights flashed across the walls, and something terrible seemed to have happened. Then I saw myself walking through the lobby. I looked older, terrified, and covered in blood. I stepped toward the camera and said something I couldn't hear. The screen changed to a close-up of my face. Underneath it appeared a timestamp, tomorrow, 11:56 p.m. I immediately turned off the projector and left the theater. The next day, I told Mr. Harlan I was quitting. He grabbed my arm and asked what I had seen. When I told him, his expression changed. He said the projector didn't simply show the future. It showed possible futures. Sometimes, when people tried to prevent what they saw, their actions caused the very event they were trying to stop. He begged me not to return to Theater 6 that night. I promised him I wouldn't. But at 11:30 p.m., while sitting at home, I received a phone call from the theater. I almost ignored it, but then I heard the unmistakable sound of the projector running through the phone. Against my better judgment, I drove back. The front door of the theater was unlocked. Every light was off except the exit signs. Theater 6 stood open. The screen was already glowing. I walked inside and saw the same theater I had seen earlier, except now every seat was occupied. The movie showed people sitting in darkness. I recognized some of them from around town. Mr. Harlan was there. The missing girl was there. The police officer who had dismissed my warning was there. Then the camera moved toward the front row, and I saw myself sitting there staring at the screen. My future self suddenly turned around and looked directly into the camera. His face was filled with terror. Then he screamed, and the screen went black. I heard breathing behind me. I slowly turned around. Every seat in Theater 6 was occupied by silent people. None of them moved. None of them blinked. Then the projector clicked, and a new image appeared. It showed the theater from above. I could see myself standing in the aisle, but I could also see another version of me standing directly behind me. I turned around, but there was nobody there. When I looked back at the screen, the second version of me was closer, then closer again. A timestamp appeared, 11:56 p.m. I looked at my phone. It was 11:55. The projector began making a horrible grinding sound. Suddenly, every person in the seats turned their head toward me at exactly the same time. Mr. Harlan stood up and shouted, "Don't let the movie finish." I ran toward the projector room while footsteps thundered behind me. I reached the machine and tried to unplug it, but it was burning hot. I pulled the power cable from the wall, yet the projector continued running. Then I noticed words printed on the film itself. The final audience. My phone changed to 11:56. The projector suddenly stopped, and complete silence filled the room. I looked at the screen one last time. It showed the Marlowe cinema from outside. The building was empty, the doors were locked, and a police car was parked across the street. Through the front window, I could see myself standing inside the lobby. But I wasn't looking at the screen anymore. I was looking directly at the camera. Then the image changed to a news reporter standing outside the old Marlowe. She announced that police were investigating the disappearance of a local theater employee who had vanished the previous night. She said the building had been closed for nearly 20 years and that no one had been found inside. Then she smiled, and it was the same unnatural smile I had seen on the faces of the audience in Theater 6. The screen went black, and behind me the projector started running again. I heard the audience applauding. I ran out of the theater and never returned to the old Marlowe. At least, that's what I told myself. I moved away from Pennsylvania and tried to forget everything. 3 months later, an envelope arrived at my new apartment with no return address. Inside was a single movie ticket. It was for Theater 6, one seat with no movie title. Printed beneath the seat number were 4 words: "Tonight's showing is you." The ticket was dated tomorrow. When I turned it over, there was a handwritten message: "Don't watch until midnight." I threw the ticket into the trash and tried to forget about it. But at exactly 11:59 that night, my television turned itself on. The screen was completely black, and through the speakers came the sound of an old projector starting up. Slowly, an image appeared. It was my bedroom, filmed from the corner of the ceiling. I was sitting on my bed, staring at the television. I looked around the room, but there was no camera anywhere. Then the version of me on the television smiled and raised one finger to his lips. Behind the real me, something stepped out of the darkness. I froze. I couldn't turn around. The television suddenly went black, and a timestamp appeared on the screen. Tomorrow, 12 a.m. That was when I finally understood what the old Marlowe had been showing me all along. It wasn't simply showing the future. It was showing the moments leading towards something that had already chosen me. The projector wasn't predicting what would happen. It was waiting for me to watch it. And every time I watched, I moved closer to becoming part of the movie. I never found out what happened at midnight because I ran from my apartment and never looked back. But sometimes, when I'm alone late at night, I hear the sound of a projector clicking somewhere in the distance. Last night, I heard it again. Then my television turned on by itself. The screen showed an empty movie theater. One seat was occupied. I couldn't see the person's face, but I knew who it was. Then white letters appeared across the screen. Next showing, tomorrow night. And beneath them was my name.